Good evening and welcome to the Board of Selectmen's meeting for Monday, July 29th. The agenda for tonight, the proposed agenda is 6:30 is the organization, the Pledge of Allegiance, the Read Mail. 9:35, Department Board updates, and we'll check on what we have for that. 6:35, Friends of Littleton Veterans, banner sales fundraiser for Veterans Corner Project. 6:50, public input, member input, followed by review Affordable Housing Trust document for filing. Around 7 should be auditing firm proposals, followed by special town meeting schedule. Around 7:30, rescheduled goal meetings, select a date for a joint meeting with the Cemetery Commission. And 7:40, town administrator, assistant town administrator, anything that they might have. Then minutes. Mr. Clerk, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mimi, you want to go through the mail?
Sure, I'd be glad to. We received a letter from the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection regarding the Littleton Commons Smart Sewer Project. They specifically approved the extension requested for the State Revolving Fund. We received a notice from Representative Arciero and Senator Eldridge regarding their annual senior cookout on August 13th at noon in the multipurpose room and courtyard in Town Hall. For anyone who wants to sign up, please call the COA front desk at 978-540-2470. We received a notice from the Minuteman Advisory Group on interlocal coordination for their fiscal 20 work plan. We also received the Metropolitan Area Planning Council's notice for their municipal elections. And finally, the Massachusetts Office on Disabilities training event on common access.
On municipal, is there something that do we have to elect somebody, or do we have to?
Members can choose to get nominated and then potentially run for election.
So let me ask you the precursor question. Keith was our delegate to Magic, and he was the one that was attending those. Is that something that falls on you now, or do we want to engage with Keith and see if I think he still attends many of those meetings because there's a lot of crossover between that and the MAPC.
So, as I understand it, and I've done a very, very little review of the organizations, you guys will have to correct me if I make an error here. The MAPC is the umbrella organization, and it captures 101 cities and towns, as I understand it. And then MAGIC, the Minuteman Advisory Group on Interlocal Coordination, is our sub-region. I believe that this notice is for MAPC, the larger organization, and probably would not necessarily require a representative of the town of Littleton. But if a representative of the town of Littleton wanted to pursue being a member of that board, then we could certainly do so. They indicate that the MPO is in its umbrella, if you will, organization has 22 voting members, which include, for state members, the Mass DOT Secretary of Transportation and someone from Massachusetts Bay Transportation Authority, someone from the Massachusetts Port Authority, and then for regional members they have a Metropolitan Area Council, the MBTA Advisory Board, and then Regional Transportation Advisory. And then it goes on to talk about current municipal members. There's 12 elected municipalities. I think this is what the heart of what we're talking about. One seat from each of the 8 MAPC subregions. So essentially,
of which Magic is one.
Right. So we don't have to, we can certainly choose to pursue it. And I don't know who, obviously, you all know the history of who served on which. And as far as I understand it, Keith is definitely involved in Magic still. I don't know what his level of participation.
MAPC, right?
Correct.
Well, both.
Perhaps both. I know he's involved.
I think he needed about 6 months for us because he had a term with one that, in order for him to continue.
He was finishing up his presidency of the MAPC,
right.
And he now sits as the first past president.
Right.
But
I
doesn't.
wonder whether he still needs our seat at the,
Affiliation.
with the MA, with Magic.
I'd be glad to contact him and follow up and make sure we're crossing our Ts and dotting our Is.
It's fine with me, it's fine with the rest of the board.
Yeah, I mean,
I
over
think
the.
that would be
yeah.
smart.
Yeah, over the years, I mean,
Yeah.
different members have been active in it. Keith, for all the time that he was here, was pretty much the face, but, you know, in past history, other folks have been in there, so if someone were interested, they shouldn't feel, you know, it's not open to them.
I was more leaning towards continue to have Keith be the face. Because
Now, there's that alternative too.
he's very recognizable.
Yes.
People, you know, whether it be in these organizations or at the State House, they recognize the curly-haired guy with the tie, you know, it's the bow tie. So, for better or worse, that's, you know, it's mostly better. I think that it served us well in the past, and that was my only thought, is that since it's in front of us now, maybe we just re-engage with Keith and find out if the board's
I think we
okay
should
with
do
that.
that,
Just
yeah.
ask him if he'll
I think it's a wisest
extend
move.
it by
Right.
another year, and gives you some time to transition in, and gives us some time to figure out how we want to navigate.
Sounds
I
good.
agree. Will do.
All right. Anything else in the mail? No?
No.
Department head boards, nothing on, moving right along. Board number 3, Friends of Veterans, Littleton Veterans, do you want to take this?
Certainly. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So if the board recalls back in,
Update. There's a board update.
Oh.
Chase and I will be going to the legislature tomorrow.
We're doing that during members update?
Oh, where is that, later on?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out the
gonna cover that
differences
during
between
members
the two
update.
myself.
It's easy to track when they were together.
Next.
Is it? All right.
where is that one?
Number
6.
4.
Oh, all right.
4.
Never mind, we'll get to that.
Okay.
Getting excited. We get to go down to the
Sure.
State House.
You're okay, Paul?
I'm fine.
Okay.
yeah. And
So-
I'll let Chase speak to him when it comes up.
So back in November 2018, the Board of Selectmen voted to set up a gift fund to help raise money for the Veterans Corner. Our Veteran Service Officer, John Brodsky, has been very, very proactive and wonderful over the years at making sure that the Veterans Corner update, the need for this project was not forgotten. If you Google up John, every time he had a chance to speak, he brought up the Veterans Corner. So thankfully, with some help, some support from the Board of Selectmen and the Friends of the Littleton Veterans, the Veterans Corner project is funded and it's underway. We're in great shape. So we set up the gift fund last year. $50,000 was the threshold. For the gift fund, we set up a GoFundMe account, which was very successful. We received a lot of donations from individuals, corporations, as well as other local organizations like the Boosters and different organizations in town. We received a $15,000 matching grant program from the Veterans Heritage Grant through Secretary Galvin's office, which was wonderful. And then the last thing that came about was the banners, the veterans banners. So I had been out to dinner with my husband in Fitchburg a couple years ago, actually probably like a year and a half ago, and they had these nice banners lining the streets of Fitchburg, and I think, oh, that would be a nice idea. So I went to the people who I know can get things done, and that was Maureen Woods and Carrie Romley-Rouleau. I also reached out to someone who's very knowledgeable in printing and has been very helpful in town for many years with coaching and different organizations, and that was Chris Bassett from Minuteman Press, who helped design the gorgeous banners. So the Friends of Littleton Veterans have been very busy these past couple months with this project. So I invited them here tonight, and I'd like to invite them to come up and introduce themselves and give us an update on the sales from the veterans banners.
Okay, we'll make this short and sweet.
I'm Carrie Rouleau.
And I'm Maureen Woods, president of the
I'm the
Friends.
treasurer.
Jane Rossetti, Navy 71 to 81,
And a friend.
and a friend.
John Borowski, VSO, among other things in town.
And a friend of the
And
Littleton
friend.
Veterans.
And Catherine Greenwood, in front of Littleton Veterans.
And Diane Price also. It's a team effort.
So, thank you. So could you give us an update on?
So, thank you for having us here. We want to thank, first of all, the Board of Selectmen for supporting us, especially Cindy, who is instrumental in getting this off the ground. We wanted to thank the Littleton Light and Water Department. This couldn't have happened without them. I don't think that they realized how many that they would be hanging, but they were very gracious about it. Minuteman Press, Chris and his team were just incredible working with us and all little changes that we did. So we want to thank all of them, but most importantly, we want to thank everybody who bought a banner or who sponsored a banner. I got to get my notes because I will forget how many we sold. We sold 112 banners and we honored 131 veterans, which is just incredible.
We were hoping to sell 50.
Yeah, we were
That's what we
worried.
told the light department.
We were worried about, making the $2,000 donation that we had to make. So we are so excited to present to you guys today a check in the amount of $8,700 for the Edgar P. Romley Veterans Corner, and this represents the proceeds from the sale of the banners.
Yay.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
Jane, turn the check around.
This way, should you take a lead in this?
Cindy, you should come over, yeah. And Chris, you should get in this too.
Why don't I take a photo? You should get a photo.
Yes.
Should have made a bigger check.
I know.
10,000 is the threshold, Chris.
Just pushing the chair.
Right.
See in front of the table? Or
Yeah, the table might work.
Yeah,
We can all get in.
Like this,
Yeah,
maybe?
get with my-
this is good.
Get Diane in.
Okay, 1, 2, 3. Paul, now you're in it too. Chuck, if you can look up, and Joe. All right, very good. Thanks.
Thank you.
We almost got Chuck in there.
What a bump.
That's what it would look like.
Glare on screen.
Awesome.
Thanks.
Thank you very
all.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's one of the most talked about things in town in years. It's terrific
Well,
work.
they have
It's
to
been-
watch
yeah.
our Facebook page because we're doing the bios of the
Right,
veterans
so
too.
if you haven't given us your bio,
I-
please send it in.
Yep.
Yeah, so anyone who doesn't know, on Facebook, the Friends of Littleton Veterans page, they actually have photos of each banner, but they also have a bio about the veteran, and they're really incredible to read the stories about each veteran. We're hoping to make a book when this is all said and done, of a picture of the veterans along with their bio. We're hoping to do that with the help of the CPC and maybe the historic.
Does Chris know that? 'Cause this looks like it's
That's
news
the
to him.
first I've heard of it. They have my help as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you to Chris and Minuteman Press Lowell.
Thank you.
Always supporting the town. Great job, Cindy.
Yes, sir. Definitely want to commend you on the hard work that you did on that to bring this forward, so.
Thank you. So we are, and more updates will be coming, but we are scheduled to have the rededication ceremony November 10th. We're not going to do it on Veterans Day just because there will be another Veterans Day ceremony separate from that. But there's a lot of neat things that are coming, being planned for that ceremony, so I'll keep you updated as that moves forward.
Okay, this brings up the public input. I ask you to, if you raise your hand, I call on you, you stand up and just give your name and address, and we'll move on. Any public input?
Matthew Nordhaus, Star Hill Road. To say that I was disappointed at the proceedings of the Selectmen's meeting of July 19th would be an understatement. This board has failed on so many levels, it's hard to know where to begin. Personal attacks have no place in this room. It says right there on the whiteboard, be respectful and kind. When a resident was allowed to read an excerpt from a slanderous and factually inaccurate letter, the basic tenets of respect were ignored. I suspect that if that language had been directed at any of your family, it would not have been allowed. Mr. Chairman, I know that letter was sent to you in advance of the meeting and you were aware of its content. You should be ashamed of yourself for allowing it to be part of the discussion. The rest of you, all of you, should be ashamed of yourselves for allowing those slurs to pass without a word. Furthermore, the comment made to the effect that an applicant was somehow less qualified than a businessman to obtain a license because she left her career to raise her children is offensive in the extreme, as well as illegally discriminatory. Apparently, you failed to do your homework by reading the resume she included, or you would have noted her substantial operational and managerial experience. I dare say, in any of your workplaces, she might be your boss. Finally, Mr. Chairman, you failed in the most basic obligation that you have, representing the people who voted you into office. Board member comments made prior to the vote concerned the ongoing debate in town dominated by a few loud voices. Your approach to the subject made it clear that you were not concerned with following the legal process determined by the voters of Littleton. You seemed more concerned about looking bad in front of a group of people who disapproved of the choice that you were about to make. This town voted multiple times to be a yes community, yet you thwarted the will of 2/3 of the voters in this town by denying applications for reasons that had no merit. You failed at upholding your moral obligations, your legal obligations, and your obligations to the people that you represent. Apologies for your behavior that at this time are useless and irrelevant. Actions speak louder than words. I hope that you find the courage to do what you should have done on the 19th and move forward with the process that you are legally bound to uphold.
Thank you. Any comments?
Katie Caruth, Goldsmith Street, and I think Matthew hit many of the points that I was going to touch on. I was also distressed to hear two women that I've known for over a decade treated so badly. They were allowed to be disparaged. And, you know, on one hand, we're talking about veterans and honor and the dignity that, you know, we owe those people. I think we need to behave with the same, you know, borrow from the veterans and the dignity that that conveys. For those who know Christine Nordhaus, she's a force. She's the strongest, most hardworking, determined woman I know. I saw how hard she worked to make Littleton Community Farm a success, including ensuring contributions of thousands of pounds of food to hunger relief. Few people work so hard for so little financial reward for such great benefit to the town of Littleton. Littleton should be grateful for her efforts. On the AgCom, she worked to bring transparency to the process. She pushed to ensure that town-owned property could be better managed, something the voters want to see happen. Intelligent, strong women can be bold, outspoken, and opinionated. Characteristics that in men might be seen as leadership qualities are dimly viewed in women. Women with these strengths are criticized as loud or not to be trusted. God only knows what she will say next. I don't always agree with what Christine says or how she says it, but please don't fault a strong woman for having strong convictions. It's a package deal. Christine is extremely competent. She has a vision for giving back to the community that's a unique opportunity with lasting benefit. It's not for anyone to judge the character of these women, Christine or Jenna, or to judge Littleton Apothecary on anything but objective criteria. It's not for Town Hall to declare who can or cannot be trusted. The loyalty model of government is flawed, as we have sadly learned in town this summer. We need to rely on competence and actions, and that's where Christine is extraordinary. I would ask that you please demand the same level of respect for the people of this town that you expect for yourselves. And please use objective criteria alone to evaluate these applications. We can't afford to hamstring our most promising innovators, and that is what we have in Christine Nordhaus and Littleton Apothecary.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
Okay. So I'm Amy Charlie Lewis. I'm at Omega Way, and I don't want to go over what Katie and Matthew both said, but I just really want to stand up for Christine and Jenna Brownson as wonderful applicants. I've known them for a long time. They've been my friends. And I really wanted to say how much I always appreciated Christine's effort at the community farm. She worked for nothing on the farm for 2 years and gave everything for basically no money, and without her, thousands of pounds of food would have not gone to Loaves and Fishes and the Merrimack Valley Food Bank and Catholic Charities and to the senior lunch and other places that it was donated to. And Littleton should be very grateful that we have someone who's such a hardworking, smart, intelligent, committed woman. And I'm really proud to have her live in Littleton with me. So, thank you.
Gabrielle Idemild, Harvard Road. So I have seen bits and pieces of this process. I'm not on social media. I don't understand how they came in, how the social media stuff came into the decision making, but I heard it several times over the course of the decision making that was done in this room. Personally, I was really disappointed by some of the remarks, specifically about Christine's ability to run a business because she had taken time off for her children. As someone who has taken time off because of a disability, the fact that someone is telling me, or people like me, that I wouldn't have an opportunity here in Littleton, I don't know if that's the message that you guys intended to send, but that's what I heard.
Yep.
And I'm really sorry to hear that.
To every single person who stays at home, that's what you said.
Thank you.
Bob, did you want to say
Aaron
something?
Moore, sorry, Colburn Lane. I feel you guys have set a precedent. You know, just like everyone's echoed, you basically said, don't have P&L knowledge, haven't run a business, sorry, you're not good enough for this town. We're not going to look at it. And now we're set a precedent that we can have multiple meetings, discussions multiple times, have a vote. People show up to vote. But then a couple people don't understand what they were voting for. That's not everyone else's problem. You know, I mean, adults, you should ask your questions before you go and place your answers. I mean, that's responsibility. So my question is, when the library comes up for a vote, or the sewer, or the senior center, if we all vote in favor, or 2/3 vote yes, and then someone else comes around the corner, oh, I didn't know we were voting, oh, I disagree. Do we just get a petition, and then just have a vote again? I mean, at what point are we gonna say the votes were cast? You know, I'm asking you guys. I'm sorry, they still haven't answered my question.
Well, they're not going to.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Brian? Well,
Sorry.
Did you want to say something?
I mean, the type of government that we have allows for a 2/3, it allows for a citizen petition, just like we had a couple of weeks ago. We had a Wednesday town meeting based upon a petitioner, a resident, that wanted to change a bylaw. So that is a process that we followed, and it can take that path. I'm not saying that we or I necessarily agree with that, but it is something that can take place. To answer your question specifically about the 3 projects that you mentioned, if any one of those passed, if someone decided it didn't go the way they wanted and they wanted to get a citizens petition together, they could put forth they could submit a citizens petition to have a town meeting.
So if we had another vote for anything, and it passes again, can they have another petition? I mean, at what point do the ability of petitioning things run out? I mean, do they just extend it over and over and over again?
There's a
I don't know the law, that's why I'm asking.
Nina may know this better, but specifically to citizens petitions, there's a moratorium on bringing up the same citizens petition over. Once it's failed, there's a certain shot clock that has to run out. I think it's 2 years.
It's 3.
3 years before the same issue can be brought forward. So.
I'm not certain on that either. Usually the zoning, there are certain bylaws that might identify that you can't bring it up, but I'm not aware of anything in the general laws that prohibits recycling a citizen's petition over and over. But it very well could be there, I'm just not aware of it.
Okay.
It's definitely the case for Chapter 40, which is...
Okay, maybe it's, right, maybe it's specific to certain statutes.
Brian Tarbox, Fletcher Lane. I agree with all the comments, and I wish I could say that I was surprised that this board treated a woman so shabbily. I'm not surprised. I'm also not surprised by the perception that when this board agrees with something that happens at town meeting, then wow, that town meeting vote is sacrosanct, and that's important, and that's democracy. And when y'all don't agree with the vote, it's, hey, it was just a couple hundred people, it's no big deal. So I would think, especially at a time after the town is embarrassed by some of the recent financial dealings, I would think especially at that point, you might try to raise your standards of behavior. And I think your behavior on this whole cannabis thing has brought discredit and shame to the town, and you should be appalled. We are appalled.
Anyone else public input?
Joni Coleman, Whitcomb Ave. Ditto to everything everyone just said here, but also I think going forward, it's important to know that that antiquated sexist viewpoint that was expressed in that meeting does not have a place in Board of Selectmen decision making.
Here, here.
Any other public input?
I'm not going to get into detail. And Christine, we've spoken a number of times, and since the Friday meeting, we've had some exchange. My words were not intended the way they were received, so I do apologize for the message. I should have chosen my words differently or better. I think that many people who I've talked to about it have said that they understood what I meant by my comments, but I certainly didn't mean to offend you in any way, shape, or form. The point that I was making is I respect that my wife stayed home with our children, and so you and I have had this exchange to some extent, but so I do apologize for that. But I know that I'm getting murdered on social media, and you know, some of the words that are out there are, for anybody who knows me or thinks they know me, I think they know that I wouldn't say something like that, and I do respect you as a person, I respect you as a parent and a wife, and I appreciate all that you've done in our community. My opinion was that you didn't have the qualifications to be successful in the business, which is why I voted the way that I voted.
Anyone else? Anything else?
Cami Bean, Oak Road, Littleton. I would like to know, I mean, at this point, the town spoke. We had 2/3 vote at town meeting. I think we were all under the impression that we were moving forward with some process on the cannabis discussion. And at this point, there's no clear view on what the process is now. What are the next steps? Are you just stopping at this point? Are you going to continue the process? And I'd like to have some insight into that, and hopefully you guys can put some clarity to what's going to happen next, because the voters have some expectation.
Well, to speak quickly, nothing has stopped. There's been no to it. I think this board has to get together again and discuss what our next moves are, what the next steps will be. There hasn't been a stoppage, and there hasn't been a no to it.
The only thing I'd add is it's been stated, we are, as of right now, we are a yes community. And so we've got 2 licenses that are out there. And I mean, it's just, from there we move forward. I can't tell you what our next, we went through a process. The process reaped no negotiations. I'd be lying to you if I told you if I knew what the next step in the process was. I assume it's going to come to us. It's not going to be us coming, asking for information.
So I would expect in a process like this that there would be some negotiation. If you weren't happy with the proposal, there could be some back and forth and rectifying of that. If the issue was security, that there could be a discussion about that, and that the current applicants that you have been reviewing would still have some opportunity here, because we have 2 local candidates here. I would much rather see local shops here than the big businesses, and they are out there and they're huge and it's big money and it's not locally funded or sourced or staffed. And I think there's a real opportunity here, and I hope you guys make some good moves in that regard.
Mr. Chair, can I?
Sure.
Say something? So I did not participate in the vote. I was not in the room during that meeting. I would like to respond to Mr. Tarbox's comment about not surprised that this board treats women so shabbily. Personally, as a woman, I take exception to that. And I will say that I wasn't part of that discussion, but I don't feel like I need to defend the gentleman that sat beside me, that's sat beside me for 2 years. But not getting into what was said during the deliberations during that meeting because I couldn't participate. I wish I had been able to participate and give my opinion, but unfortunately I couldn't. One thing that I will say is that a lot of time and energy was spent in this process. And like the Chairman Knox said, we haven't had a discussion as a group on how to move forward with that process. I think it's unfortunate that comments were made and that applicants were hurt by those comments. I think people need to be cognizant, though, of the fact that we sit up here, and if someone comes forward and reads a statement that we don't know what any of you are going to say, right? You all raised your hand tonight. We had no idea what you were going to say. And we have to afford people the right to speak. And unfortunately, hurtful things were said during that meeting. I hope that we can move on as a board and as a community and move forward with this process, however that may be. But I can't let that statement go that Mr. Tarbox said that he's not surprised that this board treated women poorly, because I'm a woman and I sit on the board. Thank you.
Thank you. So moving on.
Oh, sorry, I got one more and I'll stop talking.
Yeah.
Jamie Callahan, Dogwood Road. So I apologize I was late, so I hope I'm not repetitive, and I will try to be very concise, especially since I might be repetitive. I've just noticed at a couple of meetings, the meeting that I saw online and the special town meeting, that some of our representatives seem to be comfortable disparaging people personally, their personal characteristics, rather than just sticking to the facts of an issue or even opinion about an issue. I think that, like, guessing what people's motivations might be or just being disparaging is just not appropriate, and we should have more exemplary behavior from all of our select people. So I noticed it at special town meeting, and I noticed it when I watched the video of the last meeting. So I hope that behavior can rise to a higher level. Was that
one last?
Yeah, one more,
Oh,
and
okay.
I'll stop talking. So in the interest of the two candidates that were presented in front of you, where do they stand? Are they just kind of like hanging out, paying all this money for all the rental space until there's a decision made, or is it like a 30-day they can reapply, making the adjustments that you see fit? Or I realize there's no like set in stone stuff. I just didn't know if you had an idea, like for them at least, you know, like where do they stand? Do they just kind of like sit on their hands and wait now, or do they know that they have a 10-day window before you will say, this is where we're moving forward next? Like, has there been any sort of timeline for them?
No, as of I know, there's no, unfortunately, there hasn't been any timeline set. We have to meet, like I said before, and discuss what our next move is, but there's been nothing set, like 10 days from now you'll hear or anything like that.
So we just leave them waiting for potentially.
You know, at some point, I think we probably should meet to discuss this again. At the time I voted no on each of them, I also made it clear that I could see myself supporting either of those, that they were not irreparably, you know, design proposals. But I also think the item that we should address if we're going to revisit any of these current applicants would be the process that got us here. And the simplest way to do that is get another town meeting vote, so that people who I think had some legitimate concerns, I was clear what I was voting on, but other people, a lot of other people, made a case that they did not feel that was so black and white. And if that's what it takes to get some, you know, some clarity, at least as to what the town's intent is, then getting that in the process first before we revisit any applications seems a relatively simple thing to do for something that is a license, not a right. And I'm happy to award those licenses, to finished products that are a little bit more than what we had presented to us, especially in the context of a town that it can be said it has clearly stated one way or the other, what they want.
I'm just doing a comment, just a follow-up comment. I mean, sorry, I didn't get your name. Aaron? Aaron. The point that Aaron had made earlier about, 2/3 vote made us a yes community. How often do we take a bite at the apple? And we received a letter from a resident who took a look at how many of the people that were on the petition actually were present at town meeting. Now, maybe those people didn't go to town meeting because they didn't understand the warrant, but I would say that if a couple 100 people didn't understand the warrant, then we should have gotten some phone calls and we should have gotten some folks asking for clarity. We did have a number of meetings prior to anytime we've had a vote on this subject matter. So if that is one course of action where we could go back and bring it back to the voters and let them decide if in fact they really did want to make us a yes community. But I voted no. But
on the ballot,
I voted no on the ballot, and I voted no at
the town meeting. Okay, so I voted yes in both places.
But I mean, we serve at the will of the people, right? And the 2/3 vote came to us. We can't pick and choose and start looking through who voted for it, who didn't vote for it, and go through the voters list and try to figure it out. So I wouldn't be supportive of us doing that and going back to ballot to try to reestablish whether or not we are a yes community. But I mean, I'll stop now before I get offensive again.
I was trying to limit this stuff.
Yeah, I
think we need to have a separate discussion about this.
I think the last thing that I'd like to say, and please tell me if you disagree, the members voting for the actions that they voted for were based on the merits of the applications in front of them and not based on whether or not we should be a yes or no community. My understanding of all your actions and all your individual decisions, though I haven't spoken with you all individually, I've spoken with some of you individually, were that you voted based on the merits of the application and not based on whether or not we should be yes or no.
That was all stated at that meeting.
Thank you for that, though.
So the question remains, though, if they mitigate their application based on comments made during those meetings, can their applications then be revisited because we're still a yes community?
Yeah. Something we need to look into and we've inquired on.
Yeah, so I think we need to definitely, like you said, Joe, we weren't planning on having this discussion tonight, but I would like to have that discussion. I think it's important that we do so sooner rather than later.
Probably need some town council guidance too.
Right.
I would imagine I've never heard that there's any predisposition against an applicant reapplying. I mean, that never came up.
Right, I watched the meeting twice, like I said, because I wasn't in the room, just trying to determine how it ended and what was decided by the board, and it seems like there was no decision made about steps to move forward, but I think we do need to have that discussion and like Paul said, invite town council in to be part of it.
And Cindy, if I can add something to what you said, I think we need to have that discussion relatively expeditiously.
Mm-hmm.
That sitting on this is a pocket veto, and I don't think that's appropriate given the fact that we're not in a position to decide which votes of town meeting are ones that we think were valid and which were not. We have a valid town meeting vote. We should relatively expeditiously go through the process of determining which applicants we want to potentially enter into host community agreement negotiations with. In sitting on it and waiting for another vote of town meeting to better read the will of the people says that we get to decide which town meeting votes count and which ones don't. And I'm not supportive of that. If it takes us, a meeting or two to put it together, fine, so be it. But waiting, 3, 4, 5 meetings to do this would not be appropriate in my opinion.
Christine, you just spoke, you could certainly speak.
Yeah, so the Attorney General recently ruled against the town of Barnstable, Massachusetts for imposing an informal moratorium. A moratorium on action of these shops and the time to consider options ended in 2018. The citizens of Barnstable, Massachusetts did the same thing. A citizen's petition brought it back to town meeting. They voted yes on a ban, and the Attorney General ruled against them because this is a de facto moratorium waiting to bring this back to town meeting, and it's against the law of Massachusetts.
I would say with respect to that the town very much has the authority to come back. Part of the issue with Barnstable is that the citizens petition was a 50% majority. If it had been a zoning bylaw and cleared the 2/3 majority, it would have passed the Attorney General's muster. And so anyone who would bring something forward for a town meeting would be wise to bring it forward as a zoning article because it's being done under zoning rules. And so therefore would require a 2/3 majority. I'm looking at Ed and back, hoping he's going to nod at me at some point. So anything that would be brought forward that would try and limit the number to less than 2, 1, or 0 would need to be done based on a 2/3
But
majority.
the issue of the moratorium is still very, very moving.
One last one, Katie.
I just want to make a quick point, is that for all the people who have objected, and, I respect dissent, I respect people speaking out and pushing back. My understanding is there's been a lot of time that has passed, given for people to take action, given for people to take a citizen petition to the spring town meeting. And in fact, perhaps they were even offered help to do that. So for me, it seems problematic that, that opportunity was missed, and yet applicants are being penalized. And it seems like these are extraordinary steps being taken to honor specific dissent voices. It seems very weird, actually. I mean, I don't recall other citizens petitions getting a whole lot of help in writing the petition or that kind of thing. So I just feel like it's an added layer to the stalling that it seems wrong.
All right, we move on. Next subject. Members' input.
Me? Am I going to do this one, Paul? So last Friday we were contacted by Senator Eldridge's legislative aide letting us know that this coming Tuesday, tomorrow, Littleton's home rule petition to establish a sewer district would be heard. I actually still haven't even heard who exactly is hearing it.
I'm assuming the Committee on Local Affairs, that's usually where local home petitions go.
So we heard about it on Friday. We put together some talking points for Senator Eldridge. We are going down, we is me, Paul, Nick Lawler from Light and Water, Jim Carr, and Light and Water's lobbyist, if you will, are all going down to the State House tomorrow at 11 to meet with Senator Eldridge while Senator Eldridge testifies, and potentially Paul and I also testify in support of Littleton's home rule petition to establish the sewering district. So that's number one. Number two is we are moving forward with the memorandum of understanding with Light and Water. We don't yet have a draft to put in front of you, but Paul, I think today, sent it to town council. Paul,
Nick drafted based on our last meeting, and I forwarded that on to Tom to take a look at.
And then tomorrow morning, Paul is representing us, the Board of Selectmen, at a meeting with Light and Water, again, to sort of, we talked about generalities last time. Now we have words on the page. We've got some things to kick around, but it's possible. Yeah, it's possible we'll have an MOU to bring forward to the rest of the board for our next meeting. We're certainly driving at that, even if the goal is a little bit ambitious. And the broad outlines of it are essentially what Paul and I would like to see. And Paul, kick me under the table if I'm stepping on toes here, is that between now and Fall Town Meeting, the Board of Selectmen and Light and Water will work collectively to sort of bring the sewer article to town meeting. And that article yet is still not clear how much will be involved in that article. It may just be enough to spend the money to put the pipes in the ground, to use our MassWorks funding, and to take the next 2 steps in the process. It's also possible it may be the entire first phase of the project. Still trying to figure that out. But in either case, we will bring something forward that allows us to utilize the $1.5 million in MassWorks money. And that will almost certainly be involved with putting the pipes in the ground, because the above ground components of the system won't be designed yet. And so we won't be in a position to build it. And even at Fall Town Meeting, we may not know exactly where it's going to be yet, either in terms of which lot or definitely.
Although we hope that's not the case, but we're prepared to go either way.
Right, we'll be prepared to bring it forward in either case, because we still have to put the pipes in the ground to get it down that direction, that part of town. And we're working with one private property owner. We're still working with the highway department.
Overtures to a second, too.
And overtures to a second. So we're confident that there is a solution. We just don't know exactly which solution will come forward yet.
But we'll fund it at the State House tomorrow. I'm sure Keith will be there somewhere.
The other thing to mention on the Brown property, changing gears from the sewer, spoken with the representatives of the sellers for the Brown property. Julie Rupp is the representative from Conscom, and Amy Green and I are trying to find a time to get together. What we have asked Amy to do is set up an appraisal and get it on the books. We don't yet know. We would still like to look at the property and look at the data that the sellers have for us with regards to perk tests and whatever other information there is. I think it's highly unlikely that we would forego an appraisal. And so we've asked Amy Green to get that appraisal on the scheduled, just because the lead time could be substantial. While that gives us time to walk the property and take a look at it, and then we'll bring it before the board before we actually go forward with spending money on having the appraisal done, and we can talk about as a board if that is in fact the direction that we would like to go. So that's. Don't know when that appraisal will be yet, but talking to the seller's representatives, he was of the mind that it could take 6 to 8 weeks to get an appraiser on the ground to actually do it, because it's a particular piece of, not just any appraiser is able to walk out and appraise a property of this type. So that's probably why we're working with Amy Green to find the right appraiser to do that work. And if we do find out that it's a 2-week lead time, then we just don't schedule it. It's not that big of a deal. I think that's about it for right now. We'll have more once our group is able to meet and talk about it more specifically.
Thank you. Cindy?
So the Affordable Housing Trust, we finalized the actual trust. We've been working with town council on this for a couple weeks now. The copy that was circulated in the packet was a draft. And so I handed each one of you the finalized version of that document. We'd like to get it on record. We're getting ready to move forward with the voucher program that we discussed with the CPC. And I think we discussed it here at a couple meetings. So our first initiative for the Affordable Housing Trust is to start a rental voucher program. I think it's 13 or 16 applicants we're hoping will be able to help. They'll receive a voucher in the amount of $250 every month. They won't receive it. It will go to their landlord to offset their rental expenses and their heating costs associated with their unit. And the term of their rental assistance will be for 1 year. So that's the first initiative of the trust. But really, just to get this going, we need to be authentic and validate ourselves by actually recording the trust that's before you now. And the Board of Selectmen are are the governing body that would sign this document. It would then be recorded at the Registry of Deeds. So we've been working on this. The Housing Trust Fund Board has reviewed it, town council's reviewed it, and everybody's agreed to it. So now it's just, you're the final set of eyes to take a look at it.
Great work, again.
Thank you. We're excited for this, to get this going.
Well, like I said before the meeting, I was dry reading, but.
Yeah, no, it is,
It was well done.
Yeah. And it's a model used in many communities. Boxborough has a similar program that they've had underway for about a year now, so we've been kind of modeling ourselves after their program and working with the Mass Housing Partnership, and Liz has been great. She's been coming to all our meetings, and Maren, of course, so.
Anything else on there?
No, that's it.
If the board is prepared to vote on that, we do have a draft motion, but that's only if the board is ready to vote on the subject.
When we go through the rest of input, we'll come back to that question. Chuck? Nothing? Paul? Just two things. In front of me is a certificate of appreciation from the Rotary for in-kind sponsorship of the Appleman, which I understand went off once again perfectly in town. And I want to thank the Park and Rec for Third Thursday. We were about to have bad weather, but it cleared up, and we went from, I think, 30 participants down to about 21, but it was still well worth it. And the special plans being made for the month of August and having special slides there for kids too, so that should go over good. Now back to what you were talking with Nina.
Thank you. If the board is prepared, I mean, from what Selectwoman Napoli mentioned, the only additional information I would share is that the Affordable Housing Trust has reviewed the document. Although they're not the body that makes the decision to approve that document, that's obviously the Board of Selectmen. They've had an opportunity to review it, provide input, as well as Maren. I think we're ready at this point if the board is comfortable moving forward.
Comments from the board?
You ready for a motion, Joe?
As long as any comments? No?
Yeah. I would move that the Board of Selectmen vote to sign and have filed at the Registry of Deeds the Declaration of Trust for the Littleton Affordable Housing Trust Fund.
Second. Okay. Motion been made and second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all's in favor?
Aye.
Is this a document to get signed?
Yeah, I actually have it. Oh. Do you have one there, Nina?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Diane always helps us with all the documents
Yeah,
we need to sign, so
excellent.
she does a diligent job.
It's pretty great.
Ready for Chase. The next topic is the auditing firm proposals. I believe we had 3.
4, actually.
Four? Fine. All right, 3.
So, if I may, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Steve Venuti and I don't know why I called him Mr. right now, but Interim Finance Director Venuti and I contacted 4 auditing firms and requested proposals from each of them. The firms were Lynch Marini and Associates Incorporated, Melanson Heath, Powers and Sullivan LLC, and Roselli Clark and Associates. After meeting with each firm, reviewing their proposed timeline for last year's audit and future year's audits, as well as the level of interaction with the firm expected by our staff, Steve and I felt that Melanson and Heath was the most qualified and the best fit for Littleton at this time. We contacted references on Melanson Heath and found nothing short of a good reputation and a capability to perform the independent audit services for a community the size and complexity of Littleton. We do recognize that some firms provided price proposals that were lower than the proposal by Melanson and Heath, but we felt that the difference in price was worth the value that Melanson and Heath would provide to Littleton. I welcome our interim finance director's comments, and at the will of the board, I'm prepared to answer any questions.
Questions by the board?
Well, I didn't know.
Like Nina said, we talked to any of the four firms certainly do an audit for the town. We were more comfortable with the two larger firms. And as Nina said, when it came down to choosing one of the firms, we were leaning toward Melanson and Heath. Comfort level was a little better than what we heard from Powers and Sullivan. Not that they couldn't do the job, that they a good fit. We just felt that Melanson was a better fit for the town.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Venuti.
Mr. Seaman.
You're welcome, Mr. Chair.
I just want to say, this isn't exactly what I was expecting. I'm glad you went out and identified 4 eligible firms, but I guess what I thought was we would be presented with outfits to interview, since this is essentially the board's contracted oversight of our own administrative team, and essentially it's the only discussions, the interviews have happened exclusively with our administrative and finance team, and I'm not sure that's the footing we want to have with the auditors, and specifically not knowing a ton about each of them. I'm interested to learn more. I'm interested in having conversations that teach us more. For years it was exclusively Juicy and Hingston, and even with those folks, they would come before us. But here, whether it's Melanson and Heath, I have a concern that they may be just too big, kind of the Koppelman and Page of auditors, or I know Powers and Sullivan only to the extent that they had a good reputation in some communities I'm aware of, and also that they have always pitched at the conference to January that they'd love to come out and do business in Littleton, for what it's worth, but that's the extent of any contact there. But I think it's important for us not to lose the especially in present circumstances, the understanding that the auditing firm is an agent of the board to do auditing on our behalf, to look out for our interests. And I don't know how we do that without hiring them directly. And I would think at a minimum just an interview of the 2 principal finalists.
Is there a way to go forward that allows us to meet with Melanson and the representatives there, where it's just 2 members of the board and sit down and make sure that they understand the dynamic that they're reporting to us, Joe and another member? The reason Nina asked me what I thought about should we bring them in or not, and interview them or not, I actually said the opposite. I said no, because frankly, I personally, and I don't mean to speak for you guys, I don't have the qualifications to evaluate these guys. All I would be doing is evaluating the people that are in front of me, and do they tap dance better than the other one?
Well, that's fine, but I think even the tap dance is better than no tap dance. I mean, I give you more credit for coming up with an intelligent question or 2 if you needed to of applicants in front of you, and I think there's some value in that for all of us. But anytime we're interviewing experts, I suppose, and when they know more about their field than we do, that doesn't disqualify us from our job. And I know what questions I would be asking of auditing firms, and seeing how well they answer them in light of our recent circumstances and then just general history. I'd feel more comfortable knowing that the people here heard it from us, what we're concerned about, where we would want them to put their emphasis, and what our expectations were from them, rather than just an appreciation of which firm has the most firepower, under their roof and all the rest of that. I mean, at this point, I don't know what the differentiating points were, having not met any of them. And I also think that, although, it was timely to get this done, it's important, I think, that our incoming finance director be involved with this as well. But that, I assume, you know, obviously should have a working relationship with whoever we hire. But as far as my more principled argument is, I think it ought to be something where the board invites in top two finishes and interviews them. Just food for thought.
Certainly happy to do whatever the board would like at this point in terms of these. The town does have a meeting with the Division of Local Services on Thursday of this week. I was really hoping to, the Division of Local Services, I'm sure you all know, but for those at home, the Division of Local Services regulates basically ensures that we're following the financial laws of the Commonwealth. And, you know, it would be beneficial at this point. I'm concerned about timing and where we are in terms of the year. It would be beneficial for us to be able to engage one of these 4 firms to begin discussions in preparation for that meeting. And, you know, all we've been able to do with these firms is to tell them to look at the news. We've not been able to go into detail with any of them, obviously, because of the active investigation.
I think Division of Local Services specifically would probably have a better memory of Littleton, since they were ultimately in exasperation contacted the town administrator's office in, I think it was March or April, when message after message had been stacked up for months when they were attempting to call the finance department, and because our Schedule A hadn't been filed on time. So I'd rather get it right than just get somebody in place prior to that meeting. I think they understand we had problems before we did, perhaps.
And the only other comment I'll make is that we did end up consulting with our anticipated finance director, just so she was involved in the loop, so I appreciate that comment.
Sure. So just a couple comments. Well, first of all, you had mentioned history, and that just kind of got me thinking. And optics, and it's in light of all that we've been through, and a lot of change. The new, I'm blanking on.
Finance director, Cheryl Carrick-Stella, yes.
Who does Swampscott use currently?
They use they use the Clifton Larson and Associates,
So
the company that we can't use, basically.
Okay. Not poking holes at you, but Princeton, who did Princeton use?
Roselli Clark and Associates. I did ask for them to come in specifically. I thought that I've enjoyed working with them, really worked well with them in the past. I felt that, as again, Melanson and Heath would be a better fit, in my opinion, here, even though I would work with Roselli Clark and Associates any day of the week.
Okay. So I can argue either side of that for optics' sake, we don't want to have someone who's had a relationship with another firm over the past 3 years, 5 years, whatever it is. Or I could argue it'll help in the transition. We do want to have somebody that has some history there. So that's why I was asking about both Swampscott and Princeton. And the only other question I have with how we got to tonight is the fact that it is our appointment. I appreciate that part of it, Paul, but FinCom interacts. I mean, this is kind of, the deliverable goes through FinCom as well. So as much as I wish we had a little more,
I would invite them into the discussion as well.
Yeah, that's as much as I wish we had a seat at the table, so to speak. I do wish that maybe someone from FinCom, whether they're chairman or vice chairman or someone, had some exposure to who the candidates were. I mean, to everybody's point, any one of these four firms have, if we check the references on any one of them, they're going to come out.
Absolutely.
Yeah, they're going to come out stellar. So, not sure how to proceed, but I do feel as though I had kind of the same expectation, and I trust all of our department heads to do the right thing. But right now, we're kind of in a trust but verify mode, and this is something that we definitely do want to get right.
Cindy, any comments?
I would just echo what Chase said. When Nina had mentioned this to me, I was of the mindset, I would defer to the experts, so to speak, to review the applicants and, bring forth someone that they thought would be a good fit for the town. I would like to know, Steve mentioned it, and Nina did too, that you felt they were a better fit. What about them made them, quote, a better fit, do you think, for the town? Melanson and Heath.
One example that they did is actually went through our current audit, for example, and came up with one little footnote that was on like page 70-something of the audit report, and said, instead of saying this, what the footnote said, we would put it like this, with an explanation under it that said exactly what it was and showed the numbers in a different way. And I said to Nina right after the meeting, I said, when we went to issue the ban in June, Fidelity had called the day before and had a specific question about that footnote. And I looked at it and I had to then decipher what it meant and then get back to them with the answer. Whereas out of the blue, they had the answer to that. I thought that was pretty proactive in what they did. And just in regular conversation with them also, they seemed, in my opinion, they seemed to generally want the town's business. And didn't really get that warm and fuzzy from Powers and Sullivan.
Can I ask a follow-up question, since we're talking specifically of Melton and Hanson? Given that they're a larger firm, would we be, how would they service us as a client? Would we have a specific point of contact, or do they just have, 50 CPAs and whoever answers the phone as whoever we get that day? That would be a substantive differentiator to me.
I think all of the firms, if I may,
Please.
all of the firms came in and told us exactly what we could expect from their staff, how much time on site, how they operate behind the scenes. Each one of the firms would have a partner here for at least a week or so that they're here. And we see that right now with Justine and Hingston. I mean, Dick was here at least a week or 2 weeks of the audit. So that they all kind of operate the exact same way.
They did identify who from their team, from the bios, this person will be your lead auditor, this person will be support.
Oh, and I guess to
this
your
is our bench, they call it.
The two larger firms brought in the actual partner that would be in charge.
And to your point then, what you saw in terms of an example from them is something that we could expect from the specific individuals that we're working with going forward. Okay.
The only caveat I will put to that is when we spoke with Melanson and Heath about our timeline, and quite frankly, they had originally proposed a February completion timeline. We had said we just don't, we're just not at that stage. We can't do it that late. We need to get this rolling and completed as soon as possible. And Melanson and Heath indicated that, look, my understanding was, and Steve, correct me if I'm wrong, your point of contact won't change, but we might change the individuals who are working on your audit so that we can slot you in earlier.
To hit this year's specific
right.
timetable
Yeah.
and objectives.
Yep.
Okay.
They had pushed this out to the February or so timeline because they're already booked with the clients that they have. We requested to be back on their schedule, so they have to rework the schedule and find the staffing to come in. But they finished audit by December 31st, which is their normal date for all their customers. They said is doable.
I know in my case, when I start reading through this, and I have no understanding at all, and it's a topic that I'd like professionals to take care of. So I have no problem if we want to delay it, not delay is the wrong word, but to have people come in, or people who are comfortable with the choices that are made. It makes no difference to me at all.
It makes no difference to me. I'm highly unlikely to change, even if, short of someone in front of us saying outrageously offensive things or demonstrating an inability to utilize a calculator in front of me, I'm unlikely to decide contrary to our professional staff. And do you think that we could just as easily make sure to meet with them? I think a meeting with Selectmen and the CPA will be working with, the principal will be working with, could just as well serve the function of ensuring they know who they're reporting to. And possibly a similar thing with the finance, finance committee or joint or whatever. But nonetheless, I understand if folks do want to speak now.
The only other question I have is, at one point in time, one of the references, one of their, in their resume, one of the past clients was LELD. Did LELD just change because it was a change of command, or, as Paul and I have been saying for the past several years, would like to see some change in who the auditing firm is? Is it just like a natural cycle that LELD changed from Melanson and Heath to somebody else? Or is it just because?
As far as I know,
I wouldn't imagine they put them
Has
down.
been using Justy Hingston for
As long as we have.
as long as, yeah.
Okay. So it's probably just a blanket decision.
It's the will of the board. Let's step forward.
I made my preferences known, but if, it's not going to serve any purpose to stand in the way of the recommendation, especially since there's a important meeting on Thursday that this outfit has to be in place for. So I just think it's a cautionary tale that we should be not moving farther and farther away from accountability in this era. We should be getting closer and closer to our accountabilities.
Point made. Any other discussion?
Just echo what Paul has to say. I'm kind of the same boat. I look down and I see some, the business director from Air Shirley Regional School District. Air Shirley's listed as one of their clients currently. Evans, pretty sharp guy, and I trust his judgment. And not that I don't trust your judgment. I just would have had a little more. Would have liked to have had a little more input, I guess. There's going to be a lot of questions asked. In light of all this.
And if we're going to meet them, I would suggest, the public should have an interest in this too, even if they're just watching. If we have a chance to jointly interview with whoever, with Melanson and Heath, invite the Finance Committee in and have a session where we both get a chance to speak with them and the town can see.
I agree with that point.
Yeah, I can actually see that being even more productive, because what we can do in that session is really lay out clearly for them, here are our expectations. And Dog and Pony Show's done. Do these things. This is what we're looking for. So, no.
With Melanson and Heath.
Yeah, Melanson and Heath.
Do you want to do that prior to entering into contract negotiations with them?
I'm not hung up on the money part. They're all comparable. I just think if it's important, as our finance and administrative team think, to get these folks on board, do that, and then bring them in as soon as possible at a mutually agreeable meeting.
All right.
So do we want a motion then?
Yeah.
Move that the Board of Selectmen vote to authorize the town administrator to enter into a contract with Melanson Heath for audit services for fiscal years 2019, 2020, and 2021, subject to successful negotiations of the engagement letter.
Second.
Motion's been made and second. Any further discussions? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Number 6, special town meeting schedule.
If I may, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, please.
As the board knows, this is the first year that the town will be using Munis to create the actual tax bills, whereas it's possible that there's going to be time-sensitive articles coming to town meetings, such as sewer. At my request, Interim Finance Director Steve Venuti worked with the financial team and outlined the latest date in which the special town meeting could be held to still be able to send out the end of year, send out the tax bills before the end of the calendar year. The latest date for town meeting could be, or would be, October 28th. This evening, the board could also set a date of October 28th or earlier, if it so wishes. And I'd be glad to work on, obviously, the town meeting calendar, as has been done in the past by the town administrator. If setting an earlier date, I would need to confirm the availability of the moderator, clerk, and council. All three individuals have confirmed that they're available for the 28th. I don't advise scheduling it later than the 28th.
Discussion by anybody?
How does the 28th tie up, does it tie up our departments in a way that then makes it more difficult to get the budgeting process for the next year going relatively quickly? In other words, I would prefer not to be, I've only been on the board 2 years and it's already crept. Do we risk seeing it creep further by having town meeting on October 28th? If the answer to that is no, I don't have an objection to the 28th, but.
Mr. Chairman, I might.
We need to creep which way?
Creep
later.
Later, right.
Yeah.
It shouldn't, although it may. But it shouldn't for this reason, Chase, because the requirements made of the departments to submit their initial budgets have already been made by like September or so, right? Okay, so it was more the putting the pieces together part that was getting dragged on. I'm looking at you not because you did it, but you were nearby. I mean, that was the part that kept getting delayed, right?
Yes.
Yes. So the onus on the department heads, I don't think, is made any worse or better by when we have town meeting, right? And nobody's basing what they're planning for the future year, except for mild modifications. If they lose a vote on a capital piece or something like that, they might make a change or something.
As Nina said, that the only reason is to make sure that we can get the tax bills out.
Right.
At the end, before the clock turns 2001.
So is a week gonna be, if we move it to the 21st, the week before?
Earlier is fine.
The 14th is Columbus Day, so we're not gonna do that, so.
I mean, it's really the 21st or the 28th, right?
I think so. Yeah, because we're not gonna go the 7th.
Right, so.
And not that this is about me, but there's a conference the week before, and one that is a significant professional development opportunity. If you want to schedule it on the 21st, that's completely fine.
I would have phrased it as, this is your first year here, and might as well give you as much lead-up time as possible to town meeting.
That would have been much wiser.
Yes, right.
It just rubs off after.
It's you, Chuck, I see, I see.
No.
Got it.
I'd say, that being said, probably stay with the 28th then.
Yeah,
Is that-
that date looks fine. Especially since, and this looks like Steve's handiwork, you've already thought through the remainder of the implications for the rest of the year, right down to the December 23rd tax bill going out 2 days before Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
We've done that before, though. That's, oh well.
But there'll be such pretty tax bills now.
You don't win if you send them out before the Christmas holiday or after. There's no winning, you know that.
So, do we need a motion?
I would say that you could vote to set the date for October 28th, 2019, but you don't really have to if you don't want to.
I mean,
we're not opening the warrant yet, right?
I mean, let's set it. Let's give the town administration as much clarity as possible. I move that the Board of Selectmen vote to set the date for a special town meeting as October 28th, 2019.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Oh, hang on 1 second.
Hold on.
I was actually just thinking, we made this mistake last year. Has somebody checked the Patriots schedule and make sure they don't have a Monday night football game that night? I'm not being sarcastic here. I'm honest to God
We
serious.
have checked those things, yes. I also wonder, is this late enough, is this too late that it might implicate the implications for getting the shovel-ready part of the sewer self-help grant?
I wouldn't think so.
Okay, as long as we're prepared, I assume.
Right, exactly. I mean, the idea is, I'm sorry, say that again, Chuck?
Playing the 27th.
They're playing the 27th. Okay.
They are playing the 21st, though, so that would have been a bad day.
They are, okay, well, see,
It's the
there we go.
Jets. It's the Jets.
Okay, now let's go back. Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye. Right. He's not asking about the Bills anymore, so you've been here long enough. You're almost
I'll commiserate on the Bills on my own time.
Reschedule meetings for goal meetings and also joint meeting with the cemetery commission.
So my apologies with the schedule snap for one.
Yeah, our schedule's goofed up because the only day, Chase couldn't do it one day, I couldn't do it one day, and you couldn't do it one day, and it goofed the whole thing up.
So we're off tomorrow, right?
Yes.
Yes, I knew that. Okay.
So do you want to look at the week of August 5th. We have a meeting the 5th itself.
What's on our agenda so far on that, Nina?
I do know that we are anticipating a one-day liquor license request from Parks and Rec, not from them directly, but from a vendor for a special event this fall that is escaping me. I'm not sure it's going to be a heavy agenda at this point because it's only a week from today, mainly because of that. But I'm drawing some blanks on other details. I don't really have anything drafted at this point on that agenda.
If that's all there is, I'd suggest we go for that night for a goals meeting.
I wouldn't say that's all there is,
Well,
but I understand.
I mean, if that's the,
yeah.
Tonight's was pretty
I'm just
limited too.
drawing a little bit of a blank.
Yeah.
So
I didn't
the
expect
goals
tonight's to be that limited.
Dinner, yeah, dinner meeting.
So what night, sorry, what number was that?
The August 5th
So you're
is the one
saying
that's in
bump?
question.
If things are if that agenda is as slim as it sounds, then, and that's a judgment call
Yeah,
too,
I need to-
as to whether or not there are things that have to get done that night or whatever else. But if not, I'd suggest we do them.
When's our next meeting after the 5th?
The 19th.
So I've got the 5th, 12th, and the 19th.
You do?
Yeah.
We were just gonna
in
leave
all
you in the room
likelihood,
all by
it's-
yourself,
yeah.
actually, I think. We all collaborated
my
on
best
that.
work.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't have the
So I
12th.
can,
I'm,
the 12th.
yeah, I'm unavailable on the 12th.
So you want to count on the 5th and go from there?
So we're not gonna have a regular meeting, we're gonna do our goals meeting the 5th? Is that what you're saying, Paul, or?
Yeah, unless Nina says, I've found, a couple of things that I forgot about that are on tomorrow's, on next week's agenda. But
I really haven't started formulating the agenda at this point because I don't typically do that until after this meeting based on whatever the outcomes of this meeting.
we don't have any hearings likely, or?
Nope, no hearings at this point. We do likely expect a alcohol beverages license application, but that will take time to post and it won't be certainly won't be before the 5th. If you do want to lean towards doing it on the 5th, then I would definitely recommend a backup date just in case so that we have 2 dates set.
It's a 6th.
What about the 6th?
6.
Those are both open for me.
6th is actually really good for me.
Better than the 5th.
Better than 5th.
Well, you won't have are you saying do the Board of Selectmen meeting on the 5th and?
Well, if we're going to choose one or the other, I mean, I'm prepared to be at next week's meeting. But if we're going to do one and not the other, I'd prefer the 6th.
I'm picking one or the other.
Yeah.
Somehow I knew.
I've just heard this, what the agenda is 0 now, we schedule a
But in the
meeting.
event that changes, though.
Unfortunately, things develop like, I really truly don't know at this stage. I'm still in the learning stages a lot.
I say let's schedule it for the 6th. Right now, let's not plan on having a meeting on the 5th, and then if we have to have a meeting on the 5th,
That's why you
we
get
have
the
a
big
meeting
bucks.
on the
Okay,
5th.
all right. But with reporting requirements, I mean, unless something charges into the door by Thursday, we're not gonna be meeting on the 5th.
Correct. Well,
Is that a calendar?
Of course.
I do believe that the one-day liquor license application would be something that we'd want to meet on because it's my understanding that the Parks and Recreation folks are looking to begin planning on this subject as early as possible.
Okay.
And notification, so,
But you said also that's not an event that's happening till the fall, right? So I mean,
Correct.
we can vote on that on the 19th easy enough.
I mean, I haven't had that conversation with the assistant director over there, but my understanding was they want to get in as soon as possible.
Okay.
But I could
But they still,
certainly,
but
I
they
could
also
certainly
haven't,
ask the question.
they haven't done anything proactively yet, right?
I do believe that the Parks and Rec Commission has taken some votes, or if they haven't, they are planning to before that date.
But they haven't filed anything with you.
Not yet, nope.
Right, okay.
So go for the 6th.
I'll have my goals to you by Wednesday.
Great, that's the next discussion point. Thank you for bringing that up. So, as Chase had suggested, we will have the goal-setting session on the 6th. We'll schedule that for 6 PM. And if we have to have a meeting on the 5th, we will schedule it and notify the board immediately. If not, we will defer things to the 19th if they can be deferred to the 19th. That sound good?
Sound good?
Okay, so 6 PM.
Chair and the administrator to figure out where they want us to meet.
And then, is Wednesday a reasonable deadline for goals, and I can
Sure,
circulate them on
sure.
Thursday?
Yes, sounds good.
Is that also the,
All right.
I'm
is that
sorry?
also the deadline for the other request that you had? Email?
The dates for the joint meeting with the Cemetery Commission?
the email request, you needed me to get you some emails?
Oh, yeah, I still need that, yeah. Okay, so I guess the next item, as a part item, is dates for a joint meeting with Cemetery Commission as well. You know, I think August 5th is looking really good. Sorry, Paul.
Sorry, I just booked something on the 5th.
Yeah. I don't get why it wouldn't make sense. This would take probably less than an hour. We're gonna go on their site, right? Because one of the topics is they wanna show us their revised plan. Huh?
Crematorium?
No, don't get people all riled up. No, just, and why couldn't we do that an hour before our dinner meeting?
Little constitutional before dinner?
We've done it before, when we had different site visits. I remember we were up at the train station for something there, and then came here. And
That's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
So, yeah, at 5:30?
or 6, I mean, whatever.
All right, yeah, that sounds good.
So 5 o'clock at the cemetery and then 6 o'clock?
I mean, it's contingent on their availability, obviously, but I think they originally suggested any time from 5:30 on works for them.
Could we do
They
it
said 6 or 7
5:30 or later? 5 is tough to get here, but 5:30 can work.
Earliest I can do is 5:30.
I believe they said 6 p.m. or 7 p.m., but I can triple check right now. Just so, because they had originally phrased it to give them options, and if we're gonna throw out one time, I think it might be beneficial to try, so yeah, 6 or 7 p.m. The email was, commission typically meets on Thursday evenings at either 6 or 7 p.m. Other weeknights around the same time frame might also work for us. If you could send us some dates when the Board of Selectmen will be available to meet jointly, we can get back to you with the dates that we would be available to meet on.
Well, just give them a short list.
Yeah, I mean, we could definitely start with the 6th and see if that works.
When Janet Sullivan was the chair, I know, and they were looking to do this months ago, she had said any time after 5:30 works. I would just tell them what we're trying to do and see if it works for them.
Okay. Happy to do that.
Right, for
Do we
5:30.
decide on 5:30?
Okay, let's do it.
So then I would plan to have us scheduled wherever we end up finding ourselves at about 6:30 showing up for the goal session.
Yep.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks.
Okay, number 8, town administrator. Anything?
I don't have anything at this time, thank you.
Brevity.
Minutes approval.
I did break these up in case members who weren't attending meetings wish to vote them or abstain. Totally your choice. It's a best practice, but it's not required.
Yeah.
I don't have any comments on that.
They all look good.
Hold on, I did have a.
Did you?
It was just a sick more than anything. On the July 19th minutes, page 2, 4th paragraph down. Paul, my comments, the same concerns stated by Paul and Chase, yet we are a yes community, and he felt the facilities would create a positive financial impact on the town. Just strike the word "be." Other than that, I didn't see any. See what I'm talking?
Yeah, I do.
I'm good.
You could lump them together, by the way, the motions, if you wish.
Good, Joe?
Yep.
Yep. Unless there are objections, I'm going to pull all these together. Move that the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the meeting minutes of July 9th, regular and executive session, but not to release the executive session minutes of July 9th. Approve the meeting minutes of July 15th and approve the meeting minutes of July 19th.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in
Still
favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all.